I'm sure one of the questions Molly will have when she first starts to understand what I do is, why does someone hire a marketing agency? And usually it's the same reason why you would hire someone to guide you climbing Everest or train you to get in shape. It's because you feel that your existing skills are inadequate to accomplish the goal you've set out for yourself, which is nothing to be ashamed at. I mean, there's plenty of things that I'm not good at that I need help with. So it's not a deficit to hire a marketing agency or a personal trainer or anyone that helps. In fact, it's good kind of knowledge of self that you need that help. And it's the kind of, you know, internal reflection that is necessary for growth. So the question then becomes, well, if that's why who hires marketing agencies? And I think that's really the better question, because a lot of businesses hire marketing agencies that shouldn't. And I want to talk about why you should and why you shouldn't hire a marketing agency. Before we get into that, I want to talk about the balance between time and money. Because when you're first starting a business, there is this balance. And think of it like a seesaw. On one end of the seesaw, you have time. On the other end of the seesaw, you have cash, right? So you have money, right? Money in the bank that you can spend. And I'm not talking retirement savings, stuff you can't touch. I'm talking liquid cash that you can apply to the different facets of your life. So when you get started, usually you have very little cash and all the time in the world. Maybe you've got laid off from your job, or you quit, or maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you're just trying to spin up a business, like kind of on the side now that the kids are back in school. Whatever the situation is, you don't have a lot of capital to invest in it. Some people do. Some people come from wealthy families and they're, have a silver spoon and have a trust fund they can rely on. And that's a different situation, but that's the minority of people. Most people, when you're starting a business, you have more time than money. And so that's what we're really going to focus on. And the number one mistake people think is that when they look at all the work it takes to launch a business, they think, oh my God, I need so much help right away. And the reality is you don't, because what you're trying to do in that moment when you're looking at like all the things, oh, I need a website and I need to run ads and I need to create content and I need a space and an office and an assistant and like all these things, really what you're doing is you're trying to eat the camel in one bite, right? Or eat the whale in one bite, of the elephant, or pick your favorite animal to eat in one bite. And you don't need to do that. And I think the reason why people get stuck when they first start thinking about launching a business is that there's so much information out there to consume that they get into this cycle of consume, 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 because one, they have the time to consume all that information. And two, as long as they're consuming information, they feel like they're still making progress. And so because their balance of time is higher than their cash, they feel like it is safer to just continue consuming content, hoping that, you'll get this perfect plan so that you can then leverage the small amount of capital you have to execute that plan. And in theory, that's a pretty good plan. Like in theory, it makes a lot of sense. Oh yeah, write the blueprint first and then go out and make a big splash and everything will work perfect. But that's what you're counting on, is everything to work perfect. And nothing works perfect. In fact, most things are going to go wrong for you when you start a business. That's the reality. All of your expectations are probably going to get shattered the first time you start a business. If you think back to some of the big, titans of industry today, so like Elon Musk, for example. Elon Musk has been broke before and rebuilt his entire business, all of his wealth, everything. He's had rockets crash to Earth and cost billions of dollars. And yet a couple months later, he tested another rocket, right? And now he runs arguably the largest commercial space company in the world right now. So it's not about getting everything perfect the first time. It's about building the skills you need over those times, over those experiences, over those challenges, over those failures, so that if you ever have to rebuild it in the future, you have those. And then you can work on making sure that, okay, well, now I know all the things I'm going to run into. Now I can kind of perfect my blueprint for the next time I go out. Because I think the other thing people don't realize about your first business is it's probably going to fail. And the reason it's going to fail isn't because it's necessarily a bad idea. It's just that you don't really know what you're doing. You're probably going to make some mistakes. Some of those might be fatal to your business. Or it could be the kind of thing, and I see this all the time, you start a business and you fall out of love with it. You're like, yeah, I want to be a personal trainer, or I want to be a, real estate agent or whatever. And then you get into it, and like this has happened with people I'm close with. They get into it and they realize how much work it's going to be, or what the kind of work it is to do that role, to be a personal trainer, to be someone in real estate, to be a financial planner, whatever. You realize they just don't like it. And so that's not a failure of the business, and it's not a failure of the person. It's just you didn't know. So I think the first thing you have to get out of your head is thinking that you have to overplan to launch this perfect business, to make sure everything's right, to make sure that the money you have in the bank isn't wasted, because it's going to be wasted. Just eat that whale right now. You are going to spend money, and you're going to feel like you wasted it because you made mistakes. But here's the mindset shift you have to take into account. Anytime you spend money and something goes wrong, it's your choice whether or not it was wasted. If you learned something from that, experience, then it wasn't wasted. For example, my wife and I used to live in Freeport, New York, which is this seaside town, middle of Long Island. So one of the things in Freeport is this area called the Nautical Mile. And it's full of like restaurants on the water, because it's like not a port, it's like a boat dock. I don't know what you call it, alcove. Either way, a lot of people like bring their boats in and they park, and like you can go right from your boat into the restaurant. We didn't have a boat, we just lived in like right down the street from it. So when we first got there, we walked down and we went to one of these restaurants. And it was a very expensive restaurant, but I had just gotten, my big boy job at St. John's, and so I was feeling a little bit flush with cash, even though I was making like nothing compared to, like I was making essentially what an entry level person would make today. So I was making like no money back then. And I took Kelly out to dinner, and we got the surf and turf, because I was like, well, we live on the water, like, and I don't like seafood, right? I think one of the stories I don't remember if I told in the last episode or not, is like, when I was in college, I worked at a seafood restaurant for about a year trying to convince myself to like seafood. And I tried all sorts of seafood. And at the end of the year, I still don't like seafood. But every once in a while, I get this inkling to try it to see if my tastes change. And they don't. But I have to try it every couple years. So it was around that time, and we're sitting in this restaurant, and I order the surf and turf. And it's one of those restaurants where there's not prices on the menu. And I should have known right then and there I was in for some trouble. But, I was excited. We had just moved into this new house, and we were, we felt like we were finally kind of living the dream. And so I was like, no, it's a treat. We're just not going to worry about it. And so we get this food, and we purposely, because we didn't see the price on the menu, we purposely kind of, skimped a little bit. Like we didn't go crazy on it. So we get the surf and turf, and we maybe get like an appetizer, and I think we get dessert. And when the bill comes, it's like $300. And that was a lot of money for me back then. And for two people who were young, my wife was in school still, that like cleared out my bank account pretty much. And what I learned from that experience was, one, food on the Nautical Mile ain't so hot. It's very overpriced. Two, I still don't really like seafood. And three, if there's not prices on the menu, leave, because it's probably out of your price range. Now, I could have dropped all of those lessons, and I could have said, well, that is just a personal failure, a personal waste of money. We didn't even have that good of a time there. We didn't even like the food that much. It was a bad experience. I didn't like it, whatever. And I could have just been sullen about it. Instead, I looked at like, well, what did I learn? What did I take away from that experience? And I took away that still don't like lobster, not a fan. Don't go to that restaurant again. And don't go to a restaurant if it doesn't put prices on the menu, because you're in for some serious pain. And so, like, when you think about that, when you think about when you're going to spend money on your business, if you just accept outright that some of that money you're going to have to spend to learn hard lessons, and expect it, it makes your life so much easier, and it makes failure so much more comfortable to accept, right? When you know failure is going to happen and you accept it with welcome arms, because you understand that the lesson you're going to learn in that failure is something that is going to help you grow, your life completely changes. The way you perceive your business completely changes. So, getting back to the topic, you're first starting, you're absorbing knowledge. Biggest mistake you can do is start thinking about all the help you need, because you don't. You really just need action. You need one strategy that you think is executable by you alone, and you need to do it. And I have my own thoughts on what that strategy is, and we'll talk about those in other episodes. But it's going to be different for every person. Some people, cold calling is the best way to start, right? Just pick up the phone, dial 100 numbers a day, and do that. Other people, it's going to be going door to door to local businesses offering your services. For other people, it's going to be to establish partnerships. Whatever it is, it's going to involve an element of you getting out there and repeatedly, and that taking up most of your time. It's not going to be, for the most part, content marketing, unless that is something you are naturally good at. If you're not naturally good at content marketing, you are going to do way better cold calling, cold emailing, door knocking than you will ever do in social media, right? Because that is a talent that you then have to develop. And if we think about, what is the goal of starting the business? The goal of starting a business is to get to profit as quickly as possible. You're not going to do that through content marketing. Content marketing is going to take a long time. So if you've been creating content in your topic for 10 years, then yeah, maybe content marketing is a good vehicle for you to focus on. But let's face it, if you're just going to start a pet grooming business today and you haven't created any content yet, don't make that your first priority. Don't make building a following on Facebook your first priority. Instead, what you should do is try to partner up with other service providers, dog walkers, vets, the local pet shop, whatever it is, places where pet owners congregate. Build those partnerships so that you can get exposed to their audience, right? Or, put up a post on Nextdoor and say, hey, I see these posts all the time and they're fantastic. Hey, I'm starting a pet grooming business. I'll give your pet a free wash the first time, just in exchange for a testimonial. Whatever it is. But you're going to have to do some element of cold calling, some element of door knocking, some element of partner creation in those early days. And if you just focus on that, if you just figure out what is the right method for that piece of it, is it messaging on LinkedIn? Is it sending cold emails? Is it calling people on the phone? Is it posting offers on, my local neighborhood board? Is it going to, the local library and putting up a flyer on the bulletin board? Whatever it is, there is going to be an element of legwork there that you just have to do because you do not have the capital to do anything else. And all of those things I just said are practically free. So, but to do all those, you do need an offer. And I think this is the piece that most people skip because they go straight to that part, right? They get the good advice. They figure out, maybe through trial and error, maybe through just listening to someone like me that, okay, content marketing is not going to be my first play. Even though it is free, it's not going to build my audience quick enough for a local-based business or even for a national business or an international business for that matter. It's just not going to build it quick enough. So what else can I do? Okay, well, I could just go and do flyers on all the local community boards. I could, make cold calls to local businesses. I could do all this stuff. So you figure that part out your own. But the problem is that you don't have an offer. You don't have a clear value to then bring to the market. And because of that, you start getting really depressed because you're not getting any traction, right? You're calling these places and you're like, hey, I'm a pet groomer. I'm just, hoping we can partner. And they're like, yeah, we know a bunch of pet groomers. Like, what makes you special? We've been sending people to, Joe the pet groomer for 20 years. Why should we send people to you instead? And this is such an easy problem to solve. And again, if we go back to the topic here of when to hire a marketing agency, if you hire a marketing agency before you have an offer, they're not going to be able to help you in any meaningful way because all they're going to do is roll out the playbook for other pet groomers that has worked in the past. And if you're in a saturated market, it's not going to work at all. And it's going to cost you a fortune in the process. And it's going to be a unmitigated disaster. And you will learn from it. You sure will. But the lesson won't be anything that you can really take to the bank. It'll be, I shouldn't have hired a marketing agency because I wasn't ready. So back to the topic. You got to create this offer. So how do you create an offer? Well, you look at what other people are offering in your market and you think about what is an element of service, what is an audience that element of service is important to that I could implement and then take what I do, the core service, and package it in a unique way. So let's think about this as dog grooming. Mobile dog grooming is a great method here, right? So a lot of people's challenge when they're going to get their dog groomed is that they don't have time to take off work to go drop their dog off for groomer and pick the dog back up. Well, mobile dog grooming solves that problem. You have a van, you pull up to someone's house, the dog's in the backyard or wherever the owner leaves it, or you give the groomer, access to the garage or whatever. They clean the dog, they put the dog back, they give it a treat and a bandana, and they move on the way. It makes the whole grooming process a lot simpler. So if you're going up against brick and mortar groomers, that is a clear value add for busy parents. Now, say your specialty in dog grooming is show dogs. Well, show dogs have very unique grooming requirements because their owners treat them like a financial asset, and they invest a lot of money in those dogs because those show dogs can then go on to breed, and those puppies can sell for thousands and thousands of dollars, right? So the grooming is going to be, they're not going to trust their local Petco to do the grooming. They're going to look for someone with expertise. Well, if that's your expertise, then your offer should not just be pet grooming. It should be, elite pet grooming, or whatever the correct term is, show pet grooming, or whatever it is. And you should talk about how you have all this experience dealing with show dogs, and here's what you do. And, I don't know anything about pet grooming, so I'm just saying, like, that's the market you're going after, is someone who cares a lot more about their grooming than the average user. And then you're delivering a service that better serves them than the existing choices in the market. And that becomes your offer. And that's it in a nutshell. Now, when it comes to packaging your offer and features and benefits and all of that, that's going to be totally up to the business. Like, some people having 24-hour customer service is going to be critical. Like, a electrical contractor or computer service, or, well, not a computer service, a like MSP, like those kind of businesses. Having 24/7 call center support is really important because you don't control when breaker blows up, or when your, power stops functioning for some reason, or your plumbing gets clogged up, or your computer network crashes. And so having 24-hour access to someone who can help is a great value proposition for that audience. For other people, 24-hour support isn't reasonable. For a therapist, you can't offer 24-hour support because they're looking to connect with you, and you can't stay up 24 hours a day just waiting for someone to have a nervous breakdown or something and need assistance. So it's just not realistic. So when you start by thinking about, what is my specialty, what is my core service, what is missing from the existing market, and how do I repackage that core service that everybody else does, but with a new, unique value proposition that separates me from the rest of the world? Because your unique value proposition is your defense. The more unique value propositions you can add to your service, the better defense you have against competition, right? So, if you're offering the same thing that, you're a business coach and you're offering the exact same thing that the next business coach is offering, well, all they have to do is beat you on price then, right? Or experience or exposure or marketing or whatever, and they'll wipe you out. But if you work with a specific type of business, if you do a specific type of business coaching, if you have, some offer that they don't have, some feature that they don't have, then you'll very easily make up ground against them, even if they can outspend you. So that's the offer portion of this, right? Now, the next thing you got to do is the cold calling, right? You shouldn't do the cold calling first and then develop the offer. Develop the offer, then do the cold calling. Put up flyers with that offer. Call, your potential partners. Tell them about the offer. Look for ways to add value to their business immediately. Offer them referral bonuses. Make it so that it's a win-win situation. When you're going out and first building a business, one of the easiest ways to get clients is to offer the first 5 people a free service if they are willing to pay you back in the form of a testimonial. So do it. It's so easy. It's so easy to give away a service and in exchange for a testimonial. Because what it does is it tells the person that they're going to get such good service that they are going to be so impressed that they're going to want to leave you a testimonial, and it doesn't cost them anything. All it costs them is 5 minutes of getting on camera and being like, yeah, Jackie was great. Like, can't believe I struggled for so long with this problem and Jackie solved it in 5 minutes, or whatever it is, right? Once you have those testimonials and that social proof, that is an unbelievable asset. one of the stories I tell is when I was first starting Grow House, which at the time was called Crackle Marketing because I had my two business partners. We spent the first 3 months of the year planning the business. And then we started advertising. And I had dozens of sales calls go nowhere. And they all boiled down to this. They said, I'm on your website. I don't see anything about your experience. I don't see any testimonials. So I'm going to need personal references. I'm going to need your complete background, your work history, your resume. Like, they were treating me like I wasn't a business, but like I was someone applying for a job. It's legitimately how I was being treated. And it was incredibly stressful and disappointing to be treated that way, because at the end of the day, it's just like, man, I've worked so hard to get to this point. You have no idea. And you're treating me like, I'm a 20-year-old looking for my first gig. But that's when you don't have testimonials, when you don't have social proof, when you don't have a way for them to validate that you know what you're talking about. That is how people treat you. That is how people treat new businesses. So once you have that, when I first had it, I got my first 5 clients, and from those my first 10 clients, I guess, and it was a slog to get them. But once I got them, I got 5 of the 10 to record testimonials or write Google reviews for me. And that changed everything. The next week after I posted those, I think I closed 10 clients or 13 clients. And like, it was all because they could go to my website and they could read testimonials from people who said, he's great. He does what he says he's going to do. Like, you got to hire him. He helped me so much. Because all that they needed to push them over for my offer was just a little bit of proof, right? And proof can come in a lot of ways. It can come in before and after pictures. It can come in video testimonials. It can come in Google reviews. There's no right or wrong. There's visual always works better than just text, but text works too. If you can only get text, if you only can get Google reviews, then just get Google reviews. If you can only get before and after pictures and the people aren't willing to like leave you a testimonial, before and after pictures are still good, right? Because at least it's visual. They can see like, wow, that dog looked really mangy. And then, wow, it looks so like nice and clean, or whatever the thing is, right? So I want to emphasize that the goal here when you're first launching this business is to first create your offer. Second, leverage your time to do cold outreach to get those first clients. Offer them to provide a service for free in exchange for testimonials. Once you have that, you're going to continue that cycle of going in and doing cold outreach and all of that to build that core audience until you have enough revenue to start running paid ads, right? And you're like, well, when does the ad agency come in? I will tell you exactly when the ad agency comes in, or the marketing agency. After you have perfected all of these parts of your business, you have ad campaigns that run, you have cold outreach that works, you have an offer that converts. When you have all of that working, you have testimonials coming in, that's when you bring in the agency. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, at that point, I don't need an agency. Yeah, you don't. Because the reason people hire agencies isn't because they need to figure out their marketing. That's not what they should be doing. What they should be doing is hiring an agency when they don't have the time or the skill to execute the marketing they already know works. They have an offer that already know works. The people who are most successful with our firm are people that are already coming to the table with an offer that they know is going to work, and they just need the help taking that offer to the next level. It's not about starting from scratch. That's why I have a coaching program, because my coaching program is more about helping you get those first dominoes knocked over so you can get to the point to hire us as an agency. It's never like, if I come into a business that's just getting started and I say, yeah, it's going to cost you $5,000 a month to retain us, they're going to look at me like I've got, worms crawling out of my ears, because it doesn't make any sense to them, because they're like, I have $5,000 total. How are you going to make me $5,000 in a month? Not just 5,000, 10,000, so I can recoup the money I paid you the first month, plus the money I paid you the second month, plus then have some profit. Now, if you're doing the math, it's got to be like $15,000. How are you going to make me $15,000 in a month? I'm not. I'm absolutely not, right? Because that's not how marketing works. Marketing isn't a button that I push that all of a sudden money goes in your bank account. Believe me, if it was, I would do it every day. I would push that button every day and just add more and more money to my bank account. It takes time. This podcast, for example, I'm recording it knowing I will probably have to do 100 of these episodes before I ever break 100 views on these videos. That's just the reality. That's just the reality. You have to be consistent. You have to show up. You have to test stuff. You have to figure out what works before you can ever go back and start thinking about, okay, now it's time to hire a marketing agency. You have to go through all these steps. You have to get the system working first before you hire it, because marketing is expensive. And the only reason you should hire someone is to take something that is already working to the next level. If your offer isn't working, you need to work harder. That's just it. And you know what? Coaching can help with that. Consulting can help with that. An agency will not help with that. And I will be totally upfront. The people that fail as agency clients are people who have not figured out their offer. And I have them every once in a while, they slip in because they lie on their intake. They say, oh yeah, this thing is great. I sell so much. I have plenty of cash coming in. I just need to crack this. I just need to crack TikTok. I just need to crack Facebook, whatever it is. Okay, great. And then our second payment comes in and they're like, I'm underwater on you guys. I'm like, yeah, well, that's to be expected. Like, marketing takes time. Like, we just launched, we onboarded you this month. 60 days out is when we first start seeing results. It'll probably be until 90 where you start seeing positive ROI. Oh, well, I can't wait that long. Well, I thought you were successful already. Because successful businesses don't think month to month. Successful businesses think quarter to quarter, year to year. And so the only time you should be hiring a marketing agency is when you are thinking quarter to quarter, year to year, not month to month. If you are still month to month, you need to get better as a business owner before you ever consider hiring a marketing company. So I hope that helps. I don't know how long that took. That was 30 minutes, like almost on the dot. So I'm going to end it there. So I hope that was helpful. Molly, I love you. You're the best daughter in the world. For the rest of you, you're great for hanging out and listening to this. I hope it was helpful. Leave me feedback on whatever channels you found this on, Facebook, YouTube, whatever. I'd love to know your thoughts and comments. If you have questions, stuff that you want me to include in other future episodes, let me know. Otherwise, I will see you on the next one. Bye. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that video. Make sure to like and follow my page to see more of my content, and subscribe to my podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube to check out the full episodes. You can find all those links in the description.